Hollie's Hotspurs, welcome back. Talking Tottenham every week, no better place to be sat. If it's a win, lose, draw, we'll be here for a chat. Best believe we tackle topics like Romero at the back. Young Min Son, what can go wrong when he's on form? It's a dream come true, so sit back, relax and vibe with us. Special guests every time here to discuss. Bring your passion, come along for the ride, and don't forget to subscribe, cause...
Hello and welcome to another episode of Hollie's Hotspurs Live, the first one of 2025. Sadly, Spurs couldn't deliver all 3 points for us, or any points at all, shall I say, at the weekend against Newcastle. But with me tonight, to dissect it all and more, I am joined by two fabulous guests. So first of all, Simon, it's amazing to have you on the show. How are you?
I'm all good. Thank you for having me.
Good. We've got a lot to talk about, but we'll rifle through it. And we're also joined by Billie as well. Billie, how are you?
Yeah, good. Happy Blue Monday, everybody. Spurs didn't make it much easier, but there you go. We've been here before, we'll be here again. But happy Blue Monday.
Indeed. But before we get into it, obviously I want to say a big thank you to everybody that's tuning in now live. It's going to rewatch this. Thank you very much. Make sure you like and subscribe. Also, big shout out to the Tabletop that obviously are the sponsors of this show on a Monday. So go check them out in the link in the description, because this week I've actually added it. So make sure you go check that out. But without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Because Simon, obviously it was a 2-1 defeat against Newcastle at home. It's pretty much the norm at the moment, dropping points. But what was your overall thoughts of the game?
Pleasantly surprised. I actually thought the lineup was going to be a lot harsher than it was. I was kind of predicting one of those lineups that we're going to talk about for years to come. You know, just putting up there to kind of compare how long we've come from those types of days. But the lineup was better than I thought. Jackson was in, Gray was back in, and I mean, at this particular time, when there's so much discussion around the coach and around the results and what's going to happen if he's safe in his job or if he's in danger, I actually thought it was so encouraging to see us fight. And I know that might feel like the minimum requirement, but you know, in these situations before, we've seen the players kind of give up on a project and give up on a coach, and it was so encouraging to see them actually fight. And then, I mean, the game specifically, I mean, my head was lost after that handball. So it was hard for me to kind of get into the game after that, because it wasn't only that decision, but I thought there was some really horrific decisions in that game. I don't usually kind of focus on that stuff, but yesterday, I think because we're in such a tough spot and the players were giving it a go, to get you know, to have the referee be so impactful was I think it made a bigger impact just because he was so, you know, bad on the day. But I mean, solid first half. I thought it was a lot better that second half, and yeah, I was proud of the boys, all things considered.
Yeah, it was a big sucker punch with the ref, but I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit later. But Billie, what was your kind of take on the game? Is it similar to some? Because I thought second half, we're kind of like, I don't want to sound too cliched, but it was like a totally different team in terms of, okay, we got a knockback from the ref, but then we carried on and progressed in that second half and just couldn't find that goal.
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway from it was like the players are still obviously fighting for Ange. Like you've been in these kind of holes before when there's been obviously huge parity between the managers and the players. You know, Conte and Mourinho both very widely reportedly fell out with pretty much the entire playing squad, but this is not the case here.
Yeah.
And I think another takeaway is that it's becoming too easy to accept defeats like this and like moving on from it. That's a bit of a worry. But I think you can definitely see that the players are on side with the manager at the moment. I think that's got to be a good sign. But you know, we also can't escape the fact that we're in relegation form at the moment, whichever way you look at it. I think there's no home wins in 6 now or something like that. So it's concerning, but there's plenty of reasons to explain it. But I think, yeah, my biggest thing was the players are still obviously fighting Ange's corner, which is encouraging to see.
Yeah, I think so as well. And I think that's the thing, obviously, with all the talk at the moment, whether Ange's job's still secure, this, that, and the other. It was nice, Simon, to see the boys kind of be like, no, we aren't going to stop. We are going to carry on. Because like Billie said before, we've seen managers kind of looking on their way out and players kind of give up. But it doesn't seem that's kind of the vibe at the minute, even though we are still losing games.
Yeah, and I think it's so hard because I think Billie brings something so important up, which is you have to look at the result. You can't escape the form we're in, but it's hard to know what's reasonable to demand because the situation is so dire. I mean, it's one thing if you have 1, 2, 3 important players injured, then it's easier to kind of know what's reasonable to demand. But when it's 10 players, when it's the third choice goalkeeper, when it's a fullback and an 18-year-old center mid at center back, it becomes really hard to kind of know. I mean, what's fair and what's not fair in the sense of what to judge it all on. And I mean, looking at the second half, we dominated possession, we tried to get ahead, but I mean, you also have to look at the attacking players, because you can look at those players being not having as many injuries in those cases, in those areas, but it's still a matter of fact that we're thin, that we're forced to play players every 3 days, and you can see that it's impacting their effectiveness, their focus in some instances. I don't know. I don't think Brendan Johnson misses that shot if it's earlier in the season. I mean, a lot of players are just fried from being overplayed, and in that, like looking at it from that perspective, I think it's one way we can look at it is, okay, we have to be pretty harsh in our judgment towards the club, the ownership, and our recruitment this summer, because we clearly did too little. They should have known what this system demands, how much these players are asked to run, what the effects of that might be, and we should have made more of that summer in sense of just backing things up. So yeah, it's a hard one. I totally agree with Billy.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. Obviously, there was a slight positive, Billy, at the weekend, with obviously Brandon Austin playing his first game, first debut in the Premier League. I mean, I think it was like 9 seasons since he's been at the club, and this is his first chance to say hello, basically, in the goal. What did you kind of make of him? Because I think it was a ray of sunshine, especially obviously when the crosses were coming in. He was demanding in the box, which we don't necessarily see a lot from Vicario. I know he's trying to build on his game, but what did you make of his debut?
Yeah, I thought he was excellent, largely excellent. I think, and I think, one of the biggest indicators was that when the crowd kind of got behind him, and the crowd, what has tended to happen recently in the last couple of months and years, and so some real nervous energy around set pieces, because we have a pretty poor record lately with them, and Forster has been making some errors. Vicario has made a couple of errors, but with Austin, there was kind of like a calmness that transferred onto the crowd as well. So he dealt with that really well. And Newcastle are a horrible set piece team. They're thuggish, as they proved throughout the entire game. But Austin dealt with it really well, and I don't think he put a foot wrong at all. So yeah, really, really encouraging. It's just nice, it's a nice story that you get in this mire that we're in, and an academy player can get in a performance like that and you get an appearance, because it probably won't happen. If not ever again, he probably won't ever play in the Premier League again for us. So really, especially as we've literally just signed a new goalkeeper pretty much after the game happened. So yeah, really, really good for him, to be fair.
I was going to say, because obviously signing Kinski literally the day after is kind of a bit of a punch in the gut, isn't it, Billy?
Yeah, I think so. He might have been possibly wondering if he's going to get to play like a semi-final against Liverpool for us, like the dream type stuff. But I don't think that's going to happen anymore. But I don't know if you've seen his Instagram as well. Like, there's like hundreds of ex-Spurs players like Højbjerg and people like commented on his Instagram saying he's obviously like a really well-liked guy amongst the team. So there's like a death row of ex-Spurs people commenting on his Instagram saying well done. So yeah, it's a really good story for him.
Yeah, 100%. And like I say, it was something nice to obviously come out of that game, even though we've kind of dropped all 3 points. But it was a great start, obviously, Simon, because obviously 4 minutes in, we see that man Solanke with his head get on the end of, I think it was a Pedro Porro cross, if I remember rightly. It happened all so quick. What did you kind of make of that kind of move? It was nice to see Solanke score one of those kind of goals.
It's a great moment for Porro. I think he's got a lot of slack lately, and so it's nice to see him flash one of those good attributes that he has. That's and remind us of how important he can be, because there's not a lot of players in the league that can put in the cross like that. And also, I thought it reminded us of that there are other ways that we can use Solanke. I think sometimes he's been underserviced, and I think that's just, you know, a consequence of him being new and players not really, you know, they have a set way of playing, and low crosses, you know, have been a really effective and, you know, often used tactic of ours. And I was just nice to see us adjust a little bit, you know, go a little bit more direct, be a little bit more, adopt a little bit more to the fact that we don't have our first choice defense, and having fullbacks that play a little bit more traditional, be a little bit more direct with our crosses. And yeah, just remind us that there's probably more to come in our attacking play, because yeah, it was a brilliant header and a brilliant cross.
It really was. And obviously, I'm probably one of the biggest person to give Pedro Porro a lot of bad jip the last couple of weeks, just purely because he's defending. But again, he's got a good attribute with his crossing. It was nice to obviously see him put one in, and then Solanke got on the end of it. But then it all kind of came crashing down, didn't it, Billy? Because a couple of minutes later, we see the goal, we see the ball in the back of our own net. What did you make of obviously the massive kind of controversy that came with that goal?
Yeah, just going back to Solanke for 1 second, he scored the most headers in the Premier League last season, and that's his first one for us. So it seems like an adjustment. And I've thought this criticism of Ange that he's not he doesn't adjust tactics and he doesn't change his tactics. I think that's a really lazy criticism, and it's not true at all. I think in this game we were definitely firing in more crosses to Solanke, and I hope it's something that we do more, because, you know, when we had Kane and Porro, like, Porro is an excellent crosser of the ball. I mean, don't really see it under Postecoglou because he's more about the cutbacks. But yeah, I hope that's something we explore a lot more, because we have a really good right back in Porro who can cross the ball, and like statistically the best header of the ball, and that's the first time we've seen it. So yeah, hope we more on that. But in terms of the goal, it's an obvious as handball as you're ever going to see. Like, I'm lost for words. I can't. You know, I hate to be one of those fans that goes on. You know, I don't want to turn into an Arsenal fan and start exploring matches that happened 7 years ago for our own benefit. But I haven't seen
the fact that you have self-reflection and self-knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
Say that
right.
makes you not an Arsenal fan.
But I'm not seeing a blatant handball like that, and I understand like there's rules within the VAR thing that has to the attacker has to benefit directly from the VAR for it to be ruled out. But that is just an absolute nonsense. If it's a handball, it's a handball. That's as an obvious a handball that you can get. And obviously, you can look at the structure of the things that happen. Like we're caught out from playing at the back, and it was quite a poor pass from Sarr into Bergwall. Then Bergwall misplaced the pass, but when it's gone off a hand like that, I don't think you need to look at yourself. You need to look at the blatant, terrible decision which has gone out against us.
The thing is that it just completely went through to the path of Gordon, pretty much, didn't it? So I think that's the biggest thing for me. It's the fact that because it's happened here in the pitch, they can't rule it out for handball. I'm still confused with the handball rule, because, like we say, it might be us this week, might be another team another week. I can't find the consistency. What's handball and what isn't anymore.
And they said something about his arm being in a natural position, but I don't understand. I don't understand how that influences whether it's a handball or not. It's just that is obviously a player that's gaining advantage from the ball hitting his hand. So if that's not ruled out, I don't know what the rules are. I don't know what's going on with the rules.
And I have to ask you guys, because I mean, I feel, and this might be a unique take on this, but I feel like the referee saw that happen and then he deferred the call to the VAR. Like, because if that's not the case, we would see a lot. We would have seen a lot of goals like that during the 10 years before VAR, and we haven't. Because when it's an obvious handball like that, they always, they always blow the whistle. But in this instance, I felt like he saw it, and then he just went, "I don't know what to do here, so I'll just defer, and they'll tell me if I got this wrong." And
I think that's the sort of inherent contradiction within VAR and the way that we do it in this country, is that referees are sort of reluctant to make big calls because they can fall back on the video. Then the video are quite reluctant to overturn referee decisions on the field. So there's a huge contradiction there, that they're not really working in tandem with each other at all, and they're both kind of scared to make any meaningful decision. Like, what is the point of it if there's not going to overturn things like that? What is the point?
And I think that's what Ange always rants about, like the fact that that kind of deferral that means that it's not the referee on the pitch that actually makes the call; it's someone else that makes it. And we saw that later on when we had that touch on Byrne That was Burns,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
When he blew a handball for a situation where it's obviously less of a handball, and in the exact same situation, but less of a handball than that situation where it wasn't, it wasn't very in the totally opposite way, which makes it all so confusing for us as fans.
And I think that's the thing. There's just no clarity between it. Again, if it hits your hand, done, cool, it's handball. It shouldn't be this, oh, well, it didn't allow this player to get this advantage, this, that, and the other. I just think we're just going down a spiral of we never know what handball is. And that's the most frustrating thing, like you guys have said, as being a fan. And I think as well, Billy, the biggest thing with that damn Burn handball was the fact that he was already on a yellow at this point. And you think to yourself, surely he's got to go now.
Yeah, and then obviously the same thing happened to Jonington, who should have been, could have been sent off multiple times. He should have been booked for that handball, and then obviously goes and gets a yellow card later on in the game. So it's just, again, I don't like it. I don't like it as fan bases and fans and referee, and when you're constantly talking about refereeing decisions. But in this case, like, we were so hard done by, and I think you just had to watch Ange after the game. I've never seen him that angry before. He doesn't. He rarely ever loses his lid like that. Like, he was making comments like pretty pointed towards the referees. He was talking about if it was a level playing field, we would have won that game. He doesn't tend to make those kind of comments about referees. So yeah, I think in this instance, I think you have to look at the referees. It was a really, really poorly referee game for us, and I do honestly think that was a massive contributing factor, and this is why we lost.
And I think that's the thing. Like, very rarely I want to sit here and say, "Oh, it's the ref's fault," but there were so many things in that game that we've already spoken about that were just like, come on a minute, give us a break. But obviously, after 37 minutes, Simon, we see that Isaac hits the back of the net. Obviously, Dragson tries to get his toe on it, but it wasn't enough for Isaac to tap his in. So what did you kind of make of that goal that Newcastle scored on like the 37th minute?
Well, I thought it was. It's hard here because you want to look at what happened in that play specifically, and you look at Spence, and he doesn't really close out properly, and then Jagason is slow on his feet, and then he doesn't, he's not able to mark his man properly. But then Jagason goes off because he's sick, and he's been sick all week, and Spence has been gone from not playing to playing every single game, and he's been brilliant for us. Probably one of our better players. So, and also my head is gone from that situation, which totally changed the game state. So it was disappointing, but I kind of felt like it was in line with how the game was going. So yeah, it was disappointing, but it just felt like, I don't know, Bill is so great at this, but it just felt like one of describing these kind of situations, but it just felt like, yeah, this is how it's going for us right now. So yeah, that was my take. It's not brilliant, it's not insightful, but it's more emotive in character. But yeah, that was my feeling.
No, it makes sense because, again, like you say, your head's already gone. The players are somehow still got their heads in the game. It's just unfortunate, Billy, because obviously with Jagason, we know that obviously not Lasagna Gate this time, but it was more the Christmas flu gate was doing the rounds, and we knew there were some players that weren't necessarily well enough. But
yeah, and I just mean that by the concept, he didn't have a good game. Like, I think everyone saw that he was struggling, he was slow, like his mobility was off. He made some. I don't think he's good on the ball, but he made some really odd passes that he probably wouldn't have done usually. So he was having a bad game, and that moment was just like a clarification of that fact. And yeah, it's hard to be that hard to be. That's hard for hard. It's hard to be too harsh with him with the context in mind.
No, I'm with you 100%, and that's kind of why I probably believe that he obviously did get pulled off at halftime. Like someone said, probably because he was struggling. Obviously, he wasn't the quick on his feet. But obviously, we saw that change at halftime, where we saw obviously Spence and Archie Gray come in the middle. Now, for you, obviously, there was Dorrington on the bench. What did you kind of make of that kind of change from Ange for there being no centre backs on the pitch from the second half?
I think it just speaks to what a crazy situation that we're in at the moment, that we're going through a horrific injury crisis, and then we suddenly get an illness crisis on top of it. I think that's ridiculous. Just the insane bad luck that we're getting at the moment. And in terms of Dorrington, I just think it's not the right environment to be throwing in young players at the moment. Like, we're so chaotic and we're so nothing is going our way. Sorry, it's just if you're throwing a young player into that, it's it could go horrifically wrong and do some permanent damage to their career. So I can understand the experience because we're in a crisis. We're in an absolute crisis, and when you're in a crisis, you want the experienced heads. And actually, to be honest, Dragusin, Spence and Gray didn't do badly at all at centre back, and Reggie was all right at left back as well. And I think you've got to rely on those. I don't think it's the right environment to be throwing in a young player at the moment, and I think. And what people don't obviously forget is that we don't see these guys in training. I just don't think it's the right environment to be throwing in Dorrington at the moment. We're in an absolute crisis and nothing is going our way. So I can understand it. I don't think it's any indication on the fact that Dorrington's never going to be chosen or anything like that. He hasn't played barely any minutes himself. He hasn't even played with the under-21s that much because he's coming off the back of a bad injury. So I just think we're in such a bad crisis at the moment that it's difficult to see a way out because the fact that we had this horrendous luck of injuries and then an illness crisis on top of that just says it all of what we're going through at the moment, which is just nuts.
No, it really is. And the fact is, so it's a blessing that Archie has done so well, not necessarily playing his natural position, but has been playing here, there and everywhere across that back line. What have you made of him this season?
I mean, I feel like he's probably been one of our better players this season. And I think the fact that he's playing, considering all the things that Billy just mentioned, at 18, out of position, and is so trusted by Ange, tells you how good he is, and tells you how much they trust his experience and his instincts. Because I think exactly what Billy is saying. I think it's easy when we are in a crisis, as a consequence of our own failings as a club, not having a squad deep enough to kind of forget what's best for the young players and try to, squeeze them in to try to help us through a rough patch. But I think it shows discipline from the coach and from the coaching staff to always have in mind what's best for the players. And if that's their perspective, them still putting in players like Gray and using Bergvall like in games like this shows you how much he actually trusts them and what big help they are for us now, but also what big players they can become for us going forward.
This can definitely be an experience for them as well while they're learning and developing. It's probably, although it looks really bad and it is a crisis, sometimes it could also be a benefit to those kind of players. If they're performing well under this much pressure, then hopefully, obviously, they go on to do even better. But Billy, I'm glad that Simon mentioned Bergvall because obviously there was a lot of talk on Twitter, myself included, that obviously he got brought off. So there's still quite a lot of time left to play, and the fact he was playing well. And for me, I kind of thought, does that mean he's kind of resting him for the cup game? What was your kind of take when Ange decided to bring him off?
Yeah, I think exactly that, what you just said, that he's resting for the cup game. I think I don't think Bergvall has played 90 minutes for us at all. He normally sort of plays 60 minutes and then you see him get cramped quite often. And I have to forget that he's the Swedish season that he came off of didn't really break before he joined us up again, so he's not really had much of a rest at all. And I don't think he's played many games with 90 minutes for us. He's had sort of half an hour cameos and 60-minute cameos. And obviously, I think the thing to remember is that Sarr and Madison are both suspended for the Liverpool game, so you'd imagine that Bergvall will start, and I hope so as well because he looks so bright, man. I mean, Simon, what do you think of your fellow Swede? Like, you guys have got some players that are cooking at the moment. He must be right up there, though, as one of the most exciting, right?
I think the Swedes are single-handedly keeping us up in the Premier League, aren't they? I mean, I'm so proud. It's hard for me because I'm so protective of Kulusevski and Bergvall, so sometimes I can be too harsh or be like, I don't want to hail them too much because I don't want to, put too much pressure on them. But he was great. I mean, it was amazing considering we have to remember he's playing out of position. That position is not where he's played there, but it's not his natural position. I think the 8 position is much more his where he's at. But just looking at the difference between those first games he played with us, where everything it was going way too quick for him. Like he was not really dealing with it. I still think he has a ways to go out of possession. Like sometimes he would miss the press triggers and stuff like that. But again, he's playing out of position. It's a good midfield that they were facing. in that game. But again, I think he's had cramp at 60, 70 minutes every time he's been out there. So I think he was protecting him, and I think he had an eye on the next game. And that's the thing that Ange has to kind of balance right now. He's got such a small squad. I think it's like 11 or 12 players available, and we have suspensions. So yeah, no, I was so proud of him.
Is there like excitement around him in Sweden at the moment? There must be, right? Because he's like
obviously. I mean, I'd say after Zlatan, I haven't seen the kind of hype around the player. It's obviously a little bit different. Zlatan was a striker. There's always a little bit more hype around a player like that. But I think he's the most expensive Swedish player to ever be sold from a Swedish club. His age, he hasn't really gotten playing time in the Swedish national team. When that happens, he's going to go up even more. But obviously, he's Kulusevski and Bergvall. The fact that they're both playing for Spurs is honestly nuts from a Swedish perspective.
You got Isaac and Gaia. You guys are cooking at the moment, man.
Yeah, we got
a few more Swedes. I'll take a few more.
Let's hope. I don't know if my heart can take it, but yeah, let's see.
No, it's really interesting to get your take, Simon, on Bergvall, which kind of moves on to obviously that big cup game in the week against Liverpool. Now, Simon, obviously, like we've just said, there's not many players for Ange to kind of crop to pick from. So what would you say Ange has got the biggest headache on in terms of who's going to start, who's going to play? And again, obviously, we want to progress through this cup because at the moment our league form is heavily dipping. So what do you kind of make looking ahead to that game?
I mean, in some ways, he doesn't have a lot of choices, right? The lineup kind of picks himself. I think the goalkeeper position is a question mark. We found out today that our new goalkeeper got his Kaczynski, right? Kinski got his work visa. What's the name? You call it
work permit.
Work permit.
He got his work permit today, so he's available for selection. I would pick him. I don't see a lot of downsides to picking him. Do
you guys think if Forster's recovered, Austin's obviously just played? Do you think he will go the new guy, Kinski?
I would go Kinski. I think he's a better keeper. I think he's coming off playing regularly. He's got European experience. Yeah, I would probably play him. I'm guessing it depends on training. If Forster's trained, he might be up for selection. But if I had to bet, I would bet on him playing. How about you? You guys?
I think I'm kind of in the same boat. I don't want to see the tree anymore. As much as he did a good service for us for a couple of weeks, I can't hack it anymore. I do feel very sorry for Brandon because I think he did have a great game. Just again, I think you're right, Simon, in terms of his experience already in the European League. It's a no-brainer, I think, to play Kinski, especially if his visa's gone through as well. But Billie, you?
Yeah, I would do the same. I feel a bit bad for Austin, but I just, I think he's had his moment now, and I think realistically that's going to be it. He's now gone back. He's been knocked down a place already. Just re-signed someone, and it just can't be Forster. It can't. Like he
just can't.
And at such a bad level at the moment that it can't be him. And you're going to have to go with an actual goalkeeper over Austin, who's like a third, fourth choice goalkeeper, and it looks pretty exciting. I have to say, when we were linked with Sam Johnson, I was not at all. I think I might have even spoken about it on Twitter. I was not particularly excited at all about that signing. It was just kind of, but this one is, when we talk about like a data-led approach, and what we've kind of been expecting from Lange, like this is it, right? Like a goalkeeper who not only good with his feet, but looks exceptionally good with his feet.
And that's
what you want.
That's the difference because it's so fundamental to how we play. And when we don't have Romero and Van der Ven available, having a goalkeeper who can really, hold his nerve with the ball at his feet just opens up and also has that long ball, the ability to kind of find someone with a long ball, direct ball.
I mean, I'm only like you guys. I've only seen a couple of comps, but Jesus Christ, this guy can like do Cruyff turns in the box and all sorts.
He's amazing with his feet and also so comfortable. He doesn't have fear with it, and and also he's a great sweeper keeper from my understanding, which is also really important for how we play. And I don't know, maybe like just having a new player can give the team a boost. Like, I don't know if it's subconsciously can give the players kind of a feeling of we're on it again. Like, and also know like Richarlison is back in training, Moore is back in training. Hopefully, just having 3 new players in can get a pretty, bare knuckle team a boost. And then, I mean, as you guys said, midfield, it's probably going to be Berval, Bissouma, right? And Madison is probably going to be in again. Kulusevski probably going to start in the wing. Solanke, Son is back in after being rested. Spence and Poro, fullback. That's my expectation of the team. How about you guys?
Well, Billy, I'll let you go.
Yeah, I think the big thing from the trainer for me is Mikey Moore. Like, I don't think he's going to start, but if he's on the bench, that's such an excitement for the fans that we've badly missed lately. Like, our bench in the last few weeks has been absolutely shocking. Like, just having one single name of Mikey Moore on that bench would make such a big difference. If you're bringing him on at 60 minutes against tired legs, that is what we've been missing for so long. Like, we've really missed a different winger profile. Like, Werner,
he would give
Gonzalez.
Trent so much issues. And I think like just having that kind of having Kulusevski and Moore, if Moore is fit and firing, I mean, that would be amazing. I have a hard time seeing Son being, benched in the semifinal, but
yeah, I'm sure. So I think he'll go Son, Solanke, Johnson probably, potentially Kulusevski on the right, and Madison as well. Oh no, Madison's banned, so yeah, Johnson will definitely start on the right. Then I'm sure.
Madison's banned. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So and then he'll probably go Bergval, Bissouma, and Bentancur in the middle, maybe. I guess. Yeah. Which is an okay team. It's not like disastrous. It's not disastrous.
What's interesting is what Liverpool is going to do.
That's what I was just about to say. Like, obviously they're pretty much still in a title race after they failed to beat Man United, and I think that was a disappointing result for them. So I think that'll be playing on their minds, and I think their entire focus is going to be on the league. Like, they're not. I think if you offered them a win in our game or a win in their next league game, they take the next league game every single time. So I wonder how much
they have their home game. They have their home game left. So this, if they were to rest players, this would probably be it. It's always hard to know how a new coach for a team like Liverpool views winning a trophy in his first season. He might, be seeing a semifinal as an easy path. But I still think this game would be the game he would rest the players in.
And I think we have to go all out for this game, because if we don't win this one, we're not going to go to Anfield and get a result. So we have to pray for a win, and then we'll be backs against the wall, try and get a draw at Anfield, because we haven't won at Anfield barely in my lifetime. I can't even remember that. I think it was Luka Modric scored the last time we won there. We have an absolutely horrendous record there, so we have to go all out. I think there's a lot more riding on this one than for Liverpool, because I think Liverpool, no matter what the result is, they could probably feel they can turn us over at Anfield to get a result, but I don't think it's the same for us. If we don't win this one, I can't see us getting a result at Anfield to win the tie.
And Ange has to know how important the cups have become now. Because, I mean, I said this a couple of weeks ago and got a lot of pushbacks when I said not that the league is over, but, I mean, if we're not – this project is about winning the league. And so if they're serious about this being a long-term project, it doesn't really matter if we finish outside. If we're still going to finish outside the Champions League spots, doesn't really matter if it's 7th or 11th. But in these cups, we can get European play. We can win a trophy. Ange will never admit this, but if he has some kind of priority, if he has to make priorities, it has to be these 3 cups. And so, to me, it's obvious that we go all in this game. And that's also why I think he rested Son, for example, in the game, in a league game, instead of resting him in this game, which I don't think.
And particularly online at the moment, the fan base is very split on Postecoglou. He's vastly losing supporters, but if he wins a trophy, all of that will disappear instantly. Like, to be the guy that ends the 17-year trophy drought, he's won the fans forever in that case. So yeah, it's a lot riding on this game for us.
Definitely, and I think that's the thing. Obviously, where our league form has dipped and where there is pressure on Ange, I dread to think what the outcome would be if we do lose this game miserably. I'm not talking about, obviously, this is 2-1. Yeah, okay, it's going to be very difficult to turn at Liverpool, but I'm talking about if we lose this game by 3 or 4 goals, then I don't want to.
If the tie's over this week, then he's in big trouble, I think.
Yeah, I think, like I said, this is the big game to kind of decide where we kind of fall at the moment. But it'll be an interesting one, obviously, to look forward to that one, should I say, midweek. But I'm going to wrap it up there, guys. It's been an amazing show tonight, obviously, to go over that loss against Newcastle and look ahead, hopefully, to a win in the Cup game, because that would be lovely. But we'll go around the table and say our goodbyes. So, Simon, thank you once again for joining me tonight. Where can everybody find you doing your thing?
You can find me on Twitter under this name here, and on Hollie's pod some time in the future, I hope.
Indeed, 100%. But thank you, Simon. And Billie as well. It's been amazing to have you on, obviously, for the first show of 2025. So Happy New Year to everyone as well. I should probably have said that. But Billie, where can everybody find you doing your thing as well?
Yeah, Billie T on Twitter, and hopefully you'll get me back on for the final, because we're going to beat Liverpool. So
oh yeah,
I'll see you for the final.
Love that. I'll get that in writing. I'll make sure you're both on for the
Please
final.
Don't get it writing. Please don't.
It's fair. But no, it's been great to talk to you both tonight. Obviously, thank you to everybody that's been in the comments tonight as well, that's going to rewatch this. This will go out on Spotify as well. I'm going to get into the habit of actually doing it weekly. So make sure you check that out too. Until next time, like we always say, come on, you Spurs.